he said, he is blue. And so that moment when you dial 911 because your baby you think is going to die, you start to really rethink everything. So we jump in the car and I just began praying, Lord, don't take him. But I did still have this overwhelming peace that I was so careful in our decisions. I made the most informed decision I could make at the time, and I was at peace with whatever was happening. But it changed our trajectory with vaccines eternally, and that's when I stopped altogether.
Miss West Virginia.
I'm not a pageant girl.
Yeah, but you tell us, your sister said you've got to tell us the story.
No,
of when
I'm
you
not
were...
telling this story.
I want to hear it. She said it's a really good story. And she was
Here's the
laughing her
Reader's
head off.
Digest version. I got a speeding ticket on my way to my freshman year of college. My dad would have killed me, so I didn't tell him about it. And I did a local pageant, thinking I'll take the money, because at the local level it didn't have to be scholarship money, it was cash, and you can buy books or whatever. Well, I was going to pay my speeding ticket, and I won. And I was like, paid it, never told my dad, but I had to go to the Miss West Virginia pageant as the local title holder to get the money, and I didn't know that, so I did end up going to the Miss West Virginia pageant. That's the story.
Did you do the wave?
I don't know. It's embarrassing. I do have video. I did some of that. You know.
Oh, you did?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Oh,
it's on VHS, so we never have to relive it. It's fine.
Just get it over to Josh and he will get it
We have a
sorted
VHS
out.
machine, yeah.
We have a way.
We got that in.
All right, so
So
let's hear your story.
Yeah, it's a little involved, but I feel like I need to give you the time frame because it's important. You know, I feel so blessed that, you know, my son is not walking around with a living diagnosis right now. Praise the Lord. I can't imagine what you go through on a daily basis, but it isn't your fault. And I'm sure that's a really hard thing to digest. But for whatever reason, at the time when my first daughter was born, who is now 8, the only real talk you heard about vaccines and, you know, the theories that they're possibly harming our children was Jenny McCarthy. And so anyone who was buying into that was just drinking Jenny McCarthy's Kool-Aid. And, you know, you weren't validated. So I gave my 8-year-old every shot they wanted on time. Hep B, 0 hours old. I cringe when I look at her record. It's sickening. When my son came along, I'd read a little more. He was just 2 years behind her. And so, you know, at the time, she was fully vaccinated, but her 4-year boosters were coming up. So I didn't have any decisions to make about her at the time. Here we were with this newborn. I had to make some decisions. Fortunately, he always presented with a little bit of a sniffle, so I said, he's got a cold, we can't do it today. And so we were scattering them. He did have some reactions to the D-tap. When I would get those, he would have the knots and the fever and the swelling. And it freaked me out, but you have your doctor telling you this is the right thing to do, and so you do it. When it came time for my son to get the MMR at his 1-year visit, they wanted to give him the MMR vaccine and the chicken pox and all these. I waived them all because he had a sniffle. But in summer, the very beginning of July, he was 18 months old. I said, this is a good time to get it. It's not flu season. He's not sick. And we went in. I took a perfectly healthy baby into the doctor. He was given the MMR, and I went home to celebrate the 4th of July. 2 days later, he got a fever, and I thought, this is so weird. But then I pulled the literature, because I keep it, and I began reading it, and it said, you know, the fever could present after 24 to 48 hours, and there it was. What scared me was on day 7, he broke out in a head-to-toe rash. He was fevered the whole week, but this head-to-toe rash that scared me. So I took him in. His pediatrician said, oh, this is roseola. And my daughter had roseola. I said, I know what roseola is. You break out after the fever breaks. So he said, well, if you want another opinion, he pulls a pediatrician from the hallway to come in who was every bit of 80 years old, maybe older. This doctor had seen measles, and he said, without hesitation, that's a measles rash. And he didn't know my son had recently had the MMR. He just said, that's a measles rash. And my doctor said, what? So that the pediatrician gets a book, he pulls it up, and my pediatrician, who gave him the vaccine, is saying, oh, it looks so similar to a roseola rash. But then the other pediatrician examined my son. He said, he has mumps. And my son had lymphs out to here. He said he has measles and mumps. My pediatrician would not document it as a vaccine reaction. I had to obtain the Merck lot number from a nurse practitioner, so that I could record it with VAERS. But it didn't stop there. My baby was 18 months old. His fevers were 103, 104. On day 14 of fever, 2 weeks in, I hear my son over the monitor of his bedroom kind of grunting. It's like early 6 in the morning. And I say to my husband, he does not sound normal in there. My husband found him in the fetal position, blue, in his bed, and he brought him to me. I said, I feel like he's blue. And my husband turned on the light, and he said,
he is blue. And so that moment when you dial 911 because your baby you think is going to die, you start to really rethink everything. So we jump in the car, and I just began praying, Lord, don't take him. But I did still have this overwhelming peace that I was so careful in our decisions. I made the most informed decision I could make at the time, and I was at peace with whatever was happening. But it changed our trajectory with vaccines eternally, and that's when I stopped altogether. I've never boosted my daughter. My son, I have 2 babies who are completely unvaccinated. They're the healthiest, awesome little kids. And by the grace of God, my son is not walking around with a diagnosis, but I have to worry now, like, what's the next one going to do? So we have to get some exemptions. We have to make choices. We have to have the ability to let our child's physician write something down to say, I've treated this child. This is what is my best, advice as far as this child is concerned. And we cannot let some government official or some school nurse say, sorry, but this is it. So you are not entitled to your right of free and appropriate public education, or free, appropriate speech services, or to play Little League, for crying out loud. I homeschool, like I said, with joy. But why did I have to give my child's vaccine record to play Little League baseball? It's unbelievable to me. It has to stop.
It does. Wow. Thank you for telling that story. Just one question. What happened when you got to
The hospital.
Yeah.
I got sidetracked. They wanted to diagnose him with febrile seizures at our local hospital. I said, yeah, he's fevered and he's having seizures, but there's a reason why. So we headed to the hospital here in Charleston, Women and Children's Hospital. And the first question they ask you when you walk into the ED is your child vaccinated? I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. He's having a reaction to his measles vaccine. The masks came on. They didn't want to touch my son. I'm thinking, well, if it's not a live virus and if you can't catch measles from him, why are you wearing masks? But they all dealt with my son with masks on, and then he was admitted. He was hospitalized. This is where it gets even better. The internal medicine doc, who I met with that day, said, after keeping my son overnight, he said, I'm going to diagnose him with a virus. And I said, which one? And he said, well, I've run tests. I ran tests for the enterovirus and the adenovirus. And he said, there's one more I want to run. I said, it wasn't those? And he said, no. I said, so when you run this final test, will you finally concede that this is a reaction to the MMR vaccine so that we can protect him from future doses? No way. No way I won't. There's thousands of viruses. This is just a virus. I said, even though the literature that I have and the timeline of everything that's happened to him, from the onset of the fever to the rash to the seizure, the next thing we're getting to is encephalitis. I'm like, when are you going to find? He said, I won't. I'll call this a virus. So, fortunately for us, my family doctor, who's in the same network as my pediatrician, went behind my pediatrician's back and documented this as a vaccine injury because she believed it was, and wrote that he is never to receive a subsequent dose. I then reported my pediatrician to the Board of Osteopathic Medicine here in West Virginia for the way he bullied me over the entire thing, because he did. And he looked me in the eye and said, I'd booster him today. When I brought him back for a follow-up, I said, you're crazy, and I'm not going to be bullied anymore. So after reporting him, he wrote some slanderous things about me to make me look like an uneducated person who just was ignorant, really. He wrote all this about it, and then it was then sent to me for a rebuttal. He made up things. He falsified things that really happened, etc. So, saying all that to say, these doctors don't want to give the true diagnosis. They don't even want to tell people. They don't want to admit when a kid's on the spectrum anymore, because it's just making the data go up. It's making the statistics higher, and at some point, someone's going to catch on to that. So here we are now with my son. They're still trying to make me out to be a lunatic, and
We got your back.
Yeah.
You look so much. I'm sitting there. But she looks so much like my friend Gina. You look like my friend Gina Reed. Do you know Gina Reed from Autism is Medical?
She's in the movie.
She's in the movie.
Oh,
You know the really pretty girl, and her child keeps falling down. in the movie, right near the beginning.
Okay, I gotta tell y'all, this is just a
Have you not
confession.
seen my film?
Uh-oh.
I mean, not my
Listen,
film. Sorry, it's not my film.
I
Sorry,
paid-
terrible
I
thing to
paid-
say.
You're a producer. You're
Not.
film.
I paid and recruited people to fill the quota, and my son got sick and my baby got sick. On that night, I literally couldn't go. So if we're being honest, I'm this sold and I still haven't seen
Okay.
Back. So we're
Well, when
streaming
you-
it this weekend.
When you get to the part where there's your twin is on there, she's one of my best friends. So, yeah, that's what you remind me of. I'm missing all my friends. I've been away for so long. I'm missing them all.
Well, I just want to say, while I have the opportunity, thank you, seriously, for what you're doing, because it's important. And at some point, finally, the Surgeon General started putting a warning on a pack of cigarettes. At some point, they realized tobacco is going to kill you, and they gave up the campaign that it was safe. And so, at some point, and I'm not I try to say this, I am not anti-vaccine. I am just very pro-vaccine rights. I want people to feel confident that the choice they're making is the right one. And I just want that choice. I mean, my grandma has signed a do not resuscitate card. It's on the refrigerator. She can sign, don't save my life, but I cannot refuse a medication that can alter mine forever. And there's just something very messed up about that.